Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are jumping right in to visually map out a hyper-realistic cosmic structure known as the Holy Terror, or ANTH framework. We're looking at a system today that completely challenges traditional astrophysics by redefining the very fabric of reality itself. You see, instead of space being this empty void populated by disconnected objects, this framework visualizes the universe as a unified, living curvature engine. It's a fascinating, honestly mind-bending geometry that maps literally everything, from the massive cosmic web all the way down to the tiny cells inside our bodies.
So to really grasp this framework, we have to completely set aside standard scientific models for a minute and look at the universe as a living, breathing membrane. In the ATH system, there is no Big Bang. There's no endless one-way expansion into some dark, infinite void. Instead, curvature itself is the absolute only physical substance that exists. Everything else, matter, energy, light, gravity, the whole shebang is just an emergent behavior of that curvature, bending, twisting, and flowing in a closed dual-sphere loop known as a toroidal cycle.
Today we're going to break this geometry down step by step. The infinity sign sphere, the 7426 cosmic breath, the 13-layer nexus, the Earth-Sun core lock, popcorn fusion, and finally, the true nature of gravity.
Okay, let's start with part 1, the grand geometry and the infinity sign sphere.
This framework visualizes the universe not as an endless expanse, but as an asymmetric infinity sign sphere. Imagine a traditional sphere, but it's twisted right in the center to create two joined halves. But here's the kicker. Notice the precise imbalance. They are not equal halves at all. Right now, our side of the universe is much larger. It sits at a 74% out phase, actively expanding like a massive cosmic exhale. Meanwhile, the other side of that infinity sign is a smaller 26% in phase, meaning it's shrinking or inhaling right now. And this imbalance, it's exactly what modern astronomy observes and labels as dark energy, or cosmic acceleration. But in this model, it's just the natural outward pressure of our current phase in the cycle.
Moving right along to part 2, the cosmic piston and the breathing cycle.
You see, that 74-26 imbalance isn't static. It's actually a biological breathing cycle. The entire universe operates like a gigantic piston, constantly exchanging magnitude and curvature back and forth across that central twist in the infinity sign. As our side expands and its outward dominance, it builds curvature tension until it hits an absolute hard limit, known as the critical mass threshold, or the INF state. When critical mass is finally hit, the breath reverses. The massive exhale we are experiencing today will suddenly become a massive inhale. Our reality will shrink, pulling curvature back toward that central nexus, while the opposite side of the universe begins to grow.
This brings us to part 3, the architecture and the 13-layer cosmic nexus.
To understand how this cosmic breath actually circulates, we need to look at the engine's internal architecture. In this system, there are exactly 13 layers of reality, and they are anchored by a 26-digit physical receipt that literally stops the mathematics from infinitely leaking outward. Think about traditional math, where numbers like pi just go on forever, leaking endlessly into infinity. Well, in the ATH framework, the system is permanently closed by a master latch. Pi is actually cut off mathematically, so that equations loop back on themselves, rather than just trailing off into nothingness. And this strict mathematical closure is what forces reality to exist in exactly 13 finite layers.
Now these 13 layers form a beautifully unified toroidal lattice. 7 layers go up, 7 go down, and they share a single zero-point center. The outward expanding layers handle the massive macro scales we see in the sky, planets, stars, and galaxies. The inward compressing layers handle the microscopic scales, our biological cells, atoms, and quantum fields. And that 0 point right in the middle, that is the shared equilibrium. It's the living membrane where you and I actually exist, experiencing the perfect balance of these massive cosmic forces.
Let's transition to part 4, planetary mechanics and the Earth-Sun core lock.
Because this framework applies the exact same rules at every single scale of reality, the breathing mechanics also strictly dictate our local solar system. Through the lens of the ATH system, the Earth and Sun are locked in a dual-pole curvature exchange. The Sun acts as an active positive pump, and the Earth acts as a stable negative core. Basically, the Sun is effectively exhaling. It acts as a positive phase engine blasting out radiant curvature packets. The Earth, on the other hand, is a curvature reversal engine. It's inhaling that energy, taking it in, and using its highly compressed negative core to store and process that curvature. They're just two halves of the exact same local breathing engine, locked in this magnetic-like dance of perfect balance.
And that perfectly sets up Part 5, Inner Earth and Popcorn Fusion Mechanics. So, how does that negative core inside the Earth actually operate? We've all been taught in school that it's just a ball of slowly cooling liquid metal left over from the formation of the solar system, right? Well, this framework tells a much more violent, active story called popcorn fusion. It's a really fascinating process where intense inward curvature pressure from the Earth's negative core forces atoms to literally implode. Under supreme compression, atoms are pushed way past their stability limit into a critical mass -1 state. They actually collapse down a structural layer, triggering localized negative fusion events. These microscopic implosions release immense heat and pressure that violently popcorn outward. What this means is that the heat of the Earth's core isn't just leftover residue from billions of years ago. It is a highly active engine that is physically building the planet's crust from the inside out, moment by moment.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 6, the grand synthesis of gravity, matter, and time.
This is really the ultimate climax of this explainer. It's the strict, foundational definition of what gravity and matter actually are in this living cosmic blueprint. Because in a universe where curvature is the only physical substance, we have to completely redefine the forces that we feel holding us to the ground, and frankly, the very atoms that make up our bodies. According to the absolute source texts of this framework, and I'll read this to you exactly. Gravity is when positive and negative curvature and motion meet in relation to three parties' size, shape, and location. And nature and time is the exchange rate or locale space density. DC power is formed when gravity's motion is converted into energy. Matter is made or destroyed when they meet and lose their motion.
Okay, let's unpack that for a second, because it's a lot. Matter isn't a fundamental, solid thing. It is simply the frozen echo, the trapped skin of curvature memory created precisely when those positive and negative flows crash together and just stop moving. Think of two incredibly powerful ocean currents slamming head-on into one another. Right where they meet, the water churns and creates a standing wave that looks, from a distance, like a solid object. Well, in this framework, that standing wave is exactly what we call matter. It's just a curvature knot, a temporary, stable lock of energy. And gravity? Gravity isn't some magical pulling force acting at a distance. It's literally just the localized motion of these curvature flows trying to seek balance based on size, shape, and density.
It is an absolutely majestic, mind-bending framework, but honestly, it leaves us with one staggering question to ponder about the future of this massive cosmic piston. If matter is really just a temporary knot of opposing curvature flows, what happens to it when the universe changes its phase? When the 7426 cosmic breath hits critical mass and finally reverses, forcing our expanding reality to suddenly shrink, what will happen to the curvature knots we call our bodies? It's a pretty wild, powerful thought to leave you with today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the ATH system, and as always, keep exploring.